You've felt it before. That subtle shift in the room, the way someone's tone tightens when you don't immediately agree, the pause that feels heavier than it should. You didn't say anything wrong. You just didn't comply. And suddenly, the warmth retracts. What unsettles you isn't conflict. It's the speed of the emotional withdrawal, the invisible punishment, the sense that something is being negotiated beneath the surface. And you're not sure what the price is. This is where manipulation lives. Not in dramatic control, not in shouting, but in small, quiet tests of your boundaries. And the reason it works has very little to do with strength or intelligence. It has everything to do with how your nervous system was designed. When someone applies subtle pressure, guilt, disappointment, withdrawal, exaggerated vulnerability, your brain doesn't process it as strategy. It processes it as threat to connection. And connection, to your brain, is survival. From an attachment perspective, especially if you lean anxious or highly relational, your nervous system is wired to monitor signs of rejection, a microexpression, a change in tone, a delayed response. Your brain's threat detection system fires before your rational mind even understands what's happening. You feel discomfort, unease, a pull to repair. Manipulators rely on this reflex. They rarely demand directly. Instead, they activate your fear of disconnection. They create a subtle imbalance where your emotional stability becomes dependent on their approval. But manipulation is not power. It's insecurity expressed strategically. From a behavioral psychology standpoint, manipulation is reinforcement training. If guilt works once, it will be used again. If silence makes you chase, silence becomes a tool. The behavior that gets rewarded gets strengthened. You are not being overpowered. You are being conditioned, and conditioning only works when boundaries are inconsistent. The first silent boundary that disrupts this pattern is emotional non-reactivity. Manipulators test emotional levers. They escalate tone, imply sacrifice, or subtly question your loyalty. They are probing for a spike in your emotional response because emotional spikes signal influence. Neuroscience shows that when you react strongly, apologetically, anxiously, you confirm that the tactic worked. Emotional non-reactivity is not coldness. It is regulation. When you respond calmly and without urgency, you remove reinforcement. It is like pressing a button that no longer lights up. The second boundary is decision pacing. Manipulative dynamics often include artificial urgency. I need to know now. Why are you overthinking this? Urgency suppresses your prefrontal cortex and pushes you toward emotional compliance. When you slow down and say, I'll think about it, you restore executive control. You interrupt the pressure cycle. Cognitive biases like loss aversion make you fear losing approval in the moment. Slowing down dissolves that distortion. Manipulation thrives in it weakens in space. The third boundary is responsibility, clarity. Manipulators blur emotional ownership. If they are upset, it is framed as your failure. If they withdraw, it becomes your task to fix it. This exploits over-responsibility patterns, especially in people who learned early that love required emotional management. Responsibility clarity means understanding that their feelings are theirs and yours are yours. You do not absorb moods that are not yours. You do not rush to regulate someone who has not asked respectfully. This restores differentiation, which is the opposite of control. The fourth boundary is selective vulnerability. Vulnerability builds intimacy in healthy dynamics. But in manipulative ones, it becomes leverage. When someone references your insecurities during conflict, they are pattern tracking. Selective vulnerability means you observe how someone handles small disclosures before offering deeper ones. Trust becomes incremental. From an evolutionary lens, humans scan for safety in alliances. Your nervous system relaxes around consistency. Until consistency is proven, restraint is wisdom. The fifth boundary is consequence through consistency. Not dramatic ultimatums, not emotional speeches, just predictable behavior. If someone crosses a line and repeats it after you have addressed it calmly, access changes. You reduce availability. You decline invitations. You shorten conversations. Behavioral psychology calls this extinction. When reinforcement stops, behavior loses strength. You do not argue with manipulation. You simply stop feeding it. Underneath all of this is a simple hierarchy dynamic. The human brain constantly maps who adapts more, who regulates more, who chases repair. The one who overadjusts signals lower leverage. Manipulators sense this imbalance unconsciously. But when you regulate yourself, slow decisions, clarify responsibility, limit vulnerability, and enforce consistency, you rebalance the dynamic quietly. You shift from reactive to think of manipulation as wind. It pushes and tests for instability. If you are loose sand, it sapes you. If you are a rooted tree, it exhausts itself. The tree does not fight the wind. It does not argue with it. It simply remains structured. Over time, the wind moves elsewhere. Many people fear boundaries, will push others away. Sometimes they do, but what they push away are strategies that relied on your compliance. Secure attachment tolerates temporary disapproval because identity is not fused with external validation. If someone withdraws affection when you hold a boundary, that is information. Not failure, not rejection. Information. The discomfort you feel when holding these silent boundaries is your nervous system recalibrating. You are interrupting old conditioning. You are teaching your brain that connection does not require Manipulators sense this shift immediately, not because you become aggressive, but because you become harder to move. You do not shut down manipulators with confrontation. You shut them down by becoming psychologically expensive to manipulate. Calm, slow, consistent. Healthy people will feel safer around you because they were never seeking leverage. They were seeking stability. So the next time you feel that subtle tension, notice the impulse to explain, to justify, to soften. Pause. Slow down your response. Let silence exist without filling it. Let their emotions remain theirs. Watch what happens when the button no longer lights up. You do not need to expose manipulation. You only need to stop rewarding it. And when you do, the dynamic changes quietly. Not because you forced it, but because you stepped out of the conditioning that kept you adjustable. The wind will always exist, but you no longer have to move with it.